The December 16th, 2024 legislative session of the Anne Arundel County Council is called to order. Please ensure all phones and electronic devices are set to silence. Ms. Fiedler will now lead us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand. Please join me in prayer in a manner consistent with your faith as I pray in a manner consistent with mine. Lord, you make all things new and bring hope alive within our hearts. Thank you for the new year ahead and for all the blessings and potential it holds. As this council deliberates matters this evening, guide us with wisdom in our hearts and minds to serve the people of our county. And Lord, as we celebrate this holiday season, we thank you for the courageous men and women who have chosen the difficult and dangerous jobs as first responders in police, fire, detention, and sheriff's offices. Thank you for giving them the strength to do their important work and for their sacrifices. Help them to feel the respect and gratitude of their communities, watch over and protect them. We humbly thank you for today and all of our tomorrows. In your name, amen. Amen. And the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, please read the ethics statement.
The Ethics Commission has asked that I advise you that under certain circumstances, members of the public may qualify as lobbyists when they testify before the County Council. If so, the law requires that certain information be filed with the Ethics Commission. The chair of the Ethics Commission has asked that those who wish to testify in any form review the general information on lobbying sheet located on the Ethics website under Forms and Publications. If there are any questions about lobbying requirements, please contact the Ethics Commission at 410-222-4412.
Oops, sorry. Before we open our discussions and public hearings, I would like to remind everyone in attendance, whether testifying or as a member of the audience, we must maintain decorum at all times within these chambers. Please understand that individual conversations in the audience are very disruptive to the proceedings, and I would kindly ask you to step out of the chambers if a side discussion is necessary. We will now open our invitation to the audience. This is an opportunity to speak briefly on any subject not included in the printed agenda. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
Yes, Madam Chair. We received 3 pieces which have been shared with the Council, added to the record, and posted to the website.
Okay. We will now call on individuals who signed up ahead of the meeting. When I call your name, please come up to the table and have a seat. When it's your turn, state your name and address for the record. Remarks will be limited to 2 minutes. Please listen for the buzzer and respect the 2-minute time limit as others are signed up to speak. If you have more than 2 minutes to share, I'm going to ask you to submit your additional thoughts using our online testimony tool. So the first batch, Kurt Svensson, Kyle Nimhard, Harrison Little Jr., Latanya Gadsden, and Renee Cole. Oh, I think I have one more chair, and Larry Coates. All right. Mr. Svensson.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kurt Svensson. I live in Arnold, Maryland. The purpose of my testimony is directed as much to my fellow citizens who might happen to be watching these proceedings as it is to you. In truth, that's the case for most of the testimony I provide, and I do a lot of that. I'm not deluded enough to think public testimony actually impacts county council voting outcomes. My purpose is typically to point out something that I believe might be amiss and is worthy of consideration. This is usually based on my 25 years of experience working within Anne Arundel County government, 10 of which is the assistant budget officer. If any public testimony, not just mine, resonates with you, my fellow citizens, I urge you to act upon it. That might include contacting public officials, but if bureaucratic rigor mortis frustrates you, I urge you to take more local action. Talk about it with your friends and neighbors, within your workplace or school, and keep an eye out for the many citizen-led organizations that might share your concerns. Heck, get involved in your community associations. My particularly hard-hitting testimony at the last council meeting was met with a combination of respectful acknowledgement and or disagreement, mischaracterization and or dismissiveness, frustration, or even anger. I can't control that, but I do encourage more of the first type. I'm purposefully leaving tonight's meeting before the public hearings begin to avoid the temptation to weigh in. Thank you.
And I will say, Mr. Svensson, public testimony does often sway us on different things. So we do take it seriously coming through. Mr. Nimhart.
Kyle Nemhard, 7809 Maple Run Court. Good evening, Madam Chair, Councilman Volke, and the rest of the County Council. Madam Chair, I feel like we have a common bond. Your previous meeting was your first meeting serving as chair. It was my first meeting testifying to the County Council, so it's good to see you again. I'm here again to express my concerns about the request by the Bluestone Developers, LLC, to rezone the Nixon property on Hartwell Road. Picture just a single-family community, single-family homes mixed in with wooded areas connected by small collector distributor roads. And now picture that same area having a high-density development shoehorned in the geographic center of that. So now you're forcing traffic along these small collector distributor roads that are not built to handle that kind of traffic. This condition runs counter to sound transportation and land use practices. It would be ill-advised for planning and zoning to approve of such a proposal by Bluestone, and doing so would demonstrate a blatant disregard for the local residents. Developments of this type are well-suited along major thoroughfares such as Mountain Road, Ritchie Highway, B&A Boulevard, and maybe even Marley Neck. But it's becoming increasingly clear that the Workforce Housing Act, 1810-172, Bill 1924, is being exploited by the developer to change the R5 zoning that currently exists in an expeditious manner for profit at our expense. I and the residents of Cedar Point, totaling 48 homes, are not opposed to new neighbors, but any new homes in the area need to be consistent with the R5 zoning. Councilman Volke, as a council member who voted in favor of the bill and as our representative, we respectfully invite you to come visit the neighborhood to see for yourself what we experience and what we're concerned about. And I'm also requesting that the language in the Workforce Housing Act be revised such that this proposal and future proposals are not made with complete disregard for the existing neighborhoods and integration into the transportation network. Thank you.
Thank you. Harrison Little Jr., not here. Latanya Gatson.
Latanya Gadsden. My address is 570 Rita Drive. I live in Odenton, Maryland. 20113. Good evening. I'm here on as a part-time driver for Anne Arundel County. I've worked there for 7 years. The drivers are underpaid. 94% of the drivers surveyed believe they're not being paid fairly. The vast majority, 79%, wouldn't be able to pay their bills if they didn't work overtime. The vast majority, 78%, have no retirement savings whatsoever. The county can fix this issue by increasing the funds provided to TransDev for their services. This would allow the drivers to receive a living wage and decent benefits. Drivers start at only $18 per hour, making them the lowest paid in the region. By comparison, workers for TransDev in Baltimore will be making $29 per hour under their current contract. A huge problem with turnover, and the county has tripled our services with a limited workforce. And driver retention, because of this, has been very difficult. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Gadsden. Renelle Cole.
Raynell Cole, yes, ma'am. Good evening, council members. My name is Raynell Cole. My office address is 190 West Austin Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21230. I am the president of 1764. It's the local union that governs the TransDev employees in Anne Arundel County. We represent over 800 transit workers in the Maryland region, including the 50 drivers that work at the Anne Arundel County location that you govern. Our transit system and the employees at TransDev in my city, as Ms. Gadsden stated, are severely underpaid. paid for what they do. Listening to the other members at the table this evening, it sounds like we've got some new developments possibly coming, and we're going to need these workers to transport those people, okay? We transport the elderly, we transport the sick that go to dialysis, we do the free commuter buses that ride around in Anne Arundel County. But as she stated, the members are not making a livable wage. They don't have retirement. They don't have enough money to live paycheck to paycheck. They're working poverty at this point. So we came here this evening to ask the council to please invest more money within the TransDev community, TransDev My City contract in order to keep the employees thriving and striving in the community, and so that they can keep the community to continue moving. So we ask that you please ensure that the contract extension with TransDev includes the full requested increase to their rate so that they will match the other operators in the region. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to share with Mr. Nemhard, thank you for coming down again, because I know you were here last time. I did meet with 5 members of the surrounding communities this evening, 6 to 7 o'clock tonight, to talk about that. Happy to keep that conversation going with you. I will just share with you the same thing that I said to them, which is when we passed Bill 1924 that all of us unanimously voted on, I didn't even know about this project. But now that I do know about it, I'm like a little bit concerned because, not a little bit, I'm a lot of bit concerned because of the stormwater issues and the transportation issues. I know this is on Office of Planning and Zoning's radar too, so I just want to share with you, like, you've been heard, but also other people in your community have sat down with me and shown me on the map, and I've seen it. So happy to come out and see it more, but I just want to let you know we are paying attention. Sometimes you don't get feedback from us when you come in here, so I wanted you to hear that.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. All right. Next, Larry Coates, Jim Bongiorno, LaToya Boyd. And also, if there is anyone else here who wishes to speak, who didn't sign up ahead of time, please come up to the table and state your name and address and topic before making your remarks. And again, remarks are limited to 2 minutes. All right. Mr. Coates. All right. Mr. Bongiorno?
You want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Jim Bongiorno. I live in Odenton across from Gork Park. I've testified both online and in person at every county council meeting since October 21st about the mismanagement of the field lights at Gork Park. Using data I recently obtained from the county under the Maryland Public Information Act, I estimate that at least $73,000 was wasted lighting empty fields for the month of October 2024. $73,000 wasted for just 1 month. It is quite possible that $200,000 has been wasted lighting empty fields since the county and the Gork user group started using the new field lighting scheduling system in May. Impossible, you say? Consider this. For the county, per the county, the bulbs used on baseball field number 9 and the football field are 1,500 watts each. At BGE's standard rate, it costs nearly $18 an hour to light each of those bulbs. There were 86 bulbs. That means it costs over $1,500 an hour to light just those 2 fields. That's well worth the investment if organized sports are underway. That's not good if the fields are empty. Overall, there are 268 field light bulbs at Gork Park, ranging from 575 watts to 1,500 watts each. To estimate the loss, I compared the Musco lighting report and bulb wattage provided by the county to my timestamped pictures of lit empty fields and applied BGE's rate to the excess hours. Note that my estimate is low because I did not go out every night to take pictures, and the fields could have cleared before I arrived. Also, I did not include the cost of excessive lighting for the parking lots. In the past, the parking lot lights went off at 11 p.m., and there were no safety issues. Now they go off at dawn. Why? By the way, I had hoped to calculate the loss using Gork Park's utility bills. Unfortunately, according to the county, no such bills exist even though the park has its own meter. How does the county manage field light use at all the county parks if it does not track the cost?
Thank you, Mr. Bongiorno. Sir?
Hello, for the record, Paul Higgins, 8084 Woodholm Circle. And that's contrary to this piece of mail I got from the county that has the name all wrong. And why I bring this up is the last time I sat in front of you, I talked about a meeting that was held and the county was going to send out information. Just on the letters going out, I talked to 5 people in our community. They got letters, but they were addressed to the wrong people. I looked this one up. This happens to be a firm that's based in Arundel, Maryland. So how can we get the names right or wrong on these things and get a traffic light right? Okay, it doesn't say a lot for the competency of the crew that's working on this. Worse off, we get this introduction, okay? It's the minutes of the meeting, all of 8 lines. You probably can see that from where you're sitting. Look at the questions and answers, okay? You can't even read it. Are we like having a paper shortage in the county? Why wouldn't this been blown up to bigger paper so people could read it? You know, my dad said, read the fine print, okay? If you don't read the fine print, you're going to get what you don't want. I'm asking for accountability on this project. That's all I'm asking for. Be open, honest, and accountable. I brought copies of the letter for the staff, or for the council, and I brought a copy of a letter that was written from one of the residents to the administration, and the best he got back was, oh, okay, we're going to make that correction. Where are all these addresses? In Woodholm Circle, okay, the area that's been opposed to that traffic light going in. So I'm asking for somebody to look into this and tell me why they can't get it right. And I don't know where else to turn, because when we talk to staff, we just kind of get swished off. You'll hear we don't participate, but when they can't even get the address and the names right, how are we supposed to participate? That's all I want to say at this point, and I'll leave this for you all to look at.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I came to speak on the bill with the open zoning. I'm not sure what the number is, but
This is part is for any items not on the agenda. So if you want to speak on a specific bill, the time for that will come up when we get to that bill. Okay. Thank you. So,
sorry.
Mr. Mueller.
Hello, good evening. My name is Gary Mueller. I'm in District 1 in Jessup. As many of you know, I've been down here quite a few times here in 2020-40 testifying on different land use bills. I was kind of appalled and disgusted at the number of times that staff members sat at this table and could not answer your questions. I think that's unacceptable. I know an amendment at the last meeting was left, many questions left unanswered, and you put that amendment on, attach that amendment to the bill 7524. I think that's disgusting that you would do that without having expert advise you on what the amendment is, how it benefits the community, and so on and so forth. I would suggest, based on my experience as a town commissioner and also appointed to a planning commission in Dewey Beach, Delaware, that I took a lot of I had a lot of appreciation of the work that the planning commission did, or you might want to call it a planning advisory board did, so that they would pre-analyze zoning bills before they came for a vote between the council. I think that's something that the charter suggests that this council do, and I also think it's what the state law suggests, and it's also what every county in the state, except for 2, abide by that wise decision of using local citizen experts to advise you on your decisions on zoning bills. Thank you.
Ma'am, I may have jumped the gun about whether yours is on the agenda or not. So I wanted to, could you state what you wanted to speak on just so we can check and see?
zoning change.
The mixed-use zoning
Yes,
bill?
yes,
Okay,
that
yes,
one.
that one will be on the agenda.
Yeah,
So, okay, just wanted to make sure that I was, so there'll be a time at that point. So,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right.
What's the number?
So, yeah, come on, Ms. Johnson. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak at this time? Please come up.
Julie Johnson, P.O. Box 6634, Annapolis, Maryland. I am very sorry that I am late and totally discombobulated. I am missing one phone, which will probably go off at some point, but I've checked all the bags. But no, at any rate, in addition to that, though, I owe an apology to the Severn River Association because the last time I was here, I was telling you, or I managed to blurt out some words that came together with, which carries the wrong meaning or intention. I said, they don't know what they're doing. Well, that's not fair. I've worked with that organization for a long time. You've got a lot of highly committed, well-educated, hard-working, dedicated environmentalists and people concerned about all other things within the community. But what I was trying to say is that they didn't have enough knowledge about the situation, about the sediment problems in the Williams Creek area that I live in, that includes Wellsview Village, garden farms, and so on. And so, and that's really important because there's been an awful lot of really serious erosion problems. I carefully tried to type up materials, but some days, some weeks and months, things just don't work right. And so I really couldn't finish getting it typed. So at some point in the future, I hope to be able to give you with a short synopsis of the fact that back in 1952-53, when the State Highway Administration was tearing out the farmland and the residences that constitute the communities that had to be wiped out in large part as they, in the process of creating Route 50. Well, that meant that there was a lot of erosion, there were destruction of trees. Williams Creek was loaded with birds. There is a bird sanctuary. There are documents about the Williams Creek Bird Sanctuary, but it's not just because it's a sanctuary, it's also habitat. And see, I'm so sorry, but thank you all and bless you all for, may you have blessed and peaceful holidays.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. And I just want to acknowledge, I see we have some scouts in the back. I'm guessing you're probably here for citizenship in the community to have that. So welcome. You get to hear all of the ins and outs of the county council. Is there any item any council member would like to place on the agenda? Mr. Volke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I will withdraw Bill 95-24.
Okay. All right. We don't have to vote on that, do we? No. So Bill 95-24 is withdrawn. Okay.
Noted. Thank you so much.
All right. May I have a motion that the partial reading of any bill, resolution, amendment to a bill or resolution, or minutes constitutes the reading of the whole?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Madam Secretary, please read the minutes of December 2nd, 2024.
The county council meeting was called to order by Chair Pickard at 7:04 p.m. It was opened with an invocation given by Ms. Rodvian and was followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. The meeting was held in the county council chambers in Annapolis, Maryland.
All right. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of December 2nd, 2024?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. The minutes of December 2nd, 2024 stand approved as read. Madam Secretary, please read the titles of the bills to be introduced this evening.
Bill number 9824, an ordinance concerning purchasing small procurements. Bill number 9924, an ordinance concerning Severn Grove Special Community Benefit District approval of loan and assignment agreement. Bill number 124, an ordinance concerning finance, taxation, and budget, special community benefit districts, shore erosion control districts, and waterways improvement districts, administrative charge, penalties for noncompliance, Maryland Homeowners Association Act and Open Meetings Act compliance.
All right. Madam Secretary, please read the titles of the resolutions to be introduced this evening.
Resolution number 5224, resolution encouraging Anne Arundel County employees, residents, and visitors to save lives by driving safely.
Okay. And we will vote on resolution number 5224 at the end of our meeting. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 7524 as amended.
Bill number 7524, an ordinance concerning boards, commissions, and similar bodies, subdivision and development, zoning, development, mixed-use districts.
Okay. All right, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table, I have Jansen Evelyn, our Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for Land Use, Lynn Miller from the Office of Planning and Zoning, and Kelly Kenny from the Office of Law. So as discussed at previous council meetings and work sessions, the objective of Bill 7524 is to revise and update the zoning and development regulations that apply in mixed-use districts to better align them with Plan 2040 and recommendations in Plan 2040 and the region plans. This will allow for more cohesive and well-designed mixed-use developments in the future with greater flexibility in accordance with adopted land use plans. There are two technical amendments that we will discuss at the appropriate time. Plan 2040 is the county's general development plan and was adopted after extensive community outreach and engagement across the community, and it recommended compact, mixed-use, walkable design consistent with community character. And I want to reemphasize that these mixed-use districts are supposed to be consistent with community character. Plan 2040 also recommended focusing these developments near transit. I will point out that in Plan 2040, only 1.3% of all the land in the county is designated as mixed use. As of today, we have completed the region plan and comprehensive rezoning process for 1/3 of the county, again with significant community participation and input at both the Stakeholder Advisory Committee and Planning Advisory Board level, as well as before the County Council, with region plan adoption and comprehensive rezoning legislation this year. The remaining 2/3 of the county are currently undergoing that process, which will be completed over the course of the next 2 years. And this legislation is critically important to enable those communities that are currently undergoing the public engagement process of developing their recommendations, the tools and parameters to recommend various levels of mixed use in their communities, if that is what they are seeking. This bill proposes 5 new mixed-use zoning districts that range in scale of intensity, with a new village mixed use at the lowest level of intensity. The 4 existing mixed-use districts will be renamed to one of the new districts. Properties that are currently mapped to those existing districts will be mapped to the corresponding new district and will be subject to the new zoning and development requirements applicable to the new district. As a refresher, the mixed use village is the lowest intensity. The current mixed use residential district will become the mixed use neighborhood district. Mixed use commercial becomes the mixed use general district. The mixed use employment district becomes the mixed use suburban center, and the mixed use transit becomes the mixed use urban district.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the council. Again, my name is Jansen Evelyn. Continuing what Mr. Hunt said, in the 5 proposed mixed-use districts, the allowable densities range from 7 units per acre in mixed village to 44 units per acre in mixed-use urban. The building heights range from 36 feet to 180 feet to roughly in other words, roughly 3 stories to 14 stories. The goal is ultimately to allow flexibility in site design and to create a broader range of these mixed-use districts that will be applicable in the various geographically diverse areas within the county. One, in accordance with the adopted land use plans, and more importantly, equally importantly, in accordance with neighborhood character. As Ethan mentioned already, the bill includes an updated use chart. And it requires that all mixed-use development applications include a set of development and design standards that will be applied to the entire site in order to create a more unified and well-designed development. And the reason why we want to do that is because, again, this aligns with Plan 2040. I want to just read a few of the some of the policy areas that were stated within Plan 2040 into the record, specifically Goal BE7, which states promote vibrant, high-quality development in town centers that provide opportunities to live, work, learn, and play without the daily use of a car. Within that goal, there's a policy, B7.1, that states provide clear regulatory standards with flexibility to support high-quality design and incentives scaled to promote mixed-use development and redevelopment and provide people-centered amenities and a built environment that will enhance community quality and sustainability. Goal B8, or Built Environment 8, encourage hubs of limited commercial and community services in rural or suburban area residents in locations where such uses exist or have traditionally exist. And that policy therein says provide the development framework and incentives to encourage a mix of, commercial, service, and residential uses that are compatible with the scale and character of the surrounding community. Goal B, Built Environment 9, provide a high quality mix of employment, residential, commercial, and service uses near existing or funded transit stations. And it also states within that policy area and within that policy guidance, it says with local input, develop and implement a master plan for transit that is compatible with the surrounding community and provides connections to employment centers, community attractions, and residential areas. It also talks about Goal B in Built Environment 13, revitalizing and stabilizing existing communities in order to preserve physical character and to create economically, socially, and environmentally sustainable communities. But I want to also take a step back and for all of you to think about what kind of development we are talking about here and the county residents that it ultimately benefits. It benefits residents like two younger adults living at home with their parents because they cannot find a place that they can afford to live. They both may have jobs, they both may have cars, and so that's 4 cars that's on the road commuting to work and from running errands. It's parents of a young child who may be a 1-car household and are limited by a lack of transit options, and they could benefit from being able to purchase a home closer to a major transit stop. It also benefits seniors downsizing who no longer need or want to maintain a large suburban home and want to be within walking distance of the various amenities that they may need. And I know Ethan wants to closing points.
Yeah, I will just add, so that last one that Jansen spoke to speaks to me because I know many of us have aging parents that we may be seeing over the holidays, and I will be visiting my mother who lives in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house on 10 wooded acres and would love to get out of it and move to a more walkable neighborhood where she could, walk to see her friends, walk to appointments, walk to the grocery store or the drugstore, whatever the need may be. But that option does not exist. So I want to close by endorsing an article I saw in the Washington Post last week, and I know those two usually don't go together, but the title of the Washington Post article was Why So Many Americans Prefer Sprawl to Walkable Neighborhoods. And there are a couple key points that were in this article that I want you to think about. It talked about the concept of a 15-minute neighborhood where everything is walkable in 15 minutes that you might need for your daily life. So these are where folks are likely to be able to get everything they need within a short distance so that they can live vehicle light or vehicle-less day to day in their existence. There are also neighborhoods that are built around public transit lines and zoned for a mixture of residential and commercial use that generate about half the number of auto trips that less dense suburban areas do. In these areas, traffic fatalities are lower, emergency response times are better because everything's closer, and on a per-person basis, sprawl is more expensive because of the extensive roads, power lines, and sewer systems that go into it. Then there are also environmental issues. Some people may prefer to live farther apart because they're closer to nature. However, that also has a cost and it requires lots of land, encroaching on forests and wetlands. And so having mixed-use development allows those people to live with less of an environmental impact. Furthermore, housing prices in mixed-use areas are often the same as those in suburban areas, despite providing less space and privacy, which does suggest that there is more demand for those types of residences than there is supply. And so revising these mixed-use districts to meet the current needs of residents will offer more housing units in those areas to meet the needs of people who want them. So just in summation, these mixed-use developments can generate less traffic than sprawl development. They limit environmental encroachment. They are less costly on infrastructure, and they provide various housing opportunities to meet the demands of our county residents who need them. With that, we're happy to take any questions.
Ms. Pickard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When we set about doing this revision work for mixed use, it was my understanding that there were a couple things that we were accomplishing. One was removing some of the barriers within each of the, we had a very, the current mixed use code has a lot of prescriptive percentages of this, that, and the other that have to go into the different categories. But the other, so we were breaking down those barriers. The other thing was adding that village mixed use. I believe I'm correct. It's a small village mixed use, which is most important in some of our, for smaller developments in more suburban areas. This bill is a little late to the party, right? Because we've already done 3 of our region plans, but we have 6 coming. And if we don't revise these mixed-use categories, we're going to miss the boat on how we plan for the next 6 regions. I hope we've done a lot of amending here over the last few meetings to get this bill in a place where everybody was comfortable. It would be really a waste of all of this time if we had to start over. I hope we're going to get to the finish line today, because I know my region is coming up, and I know there are large other properties like the Laurel Racetrack that are banking on a redevelopment in the next 10 years. And if we don't get this, if we don't do this work now, we're going to wait another decade or more to bring modern land use policies to Anne Arundel County, and our communities suffer with that. So I am supportive of where we've gotten this bill to date, and I hope we can cross the finish line tonight.
I have a couple of questions for y'all to have there. It's about the grandfathering provisions that we have in the bill. So the understanding of how the grandfathering will work for several of the existing projects that have been developed under today's mixed-use provisions. One of these projects is still continuing to developers, not fully leased. So if an existing development is grandfathered under the law as it exists today, your staff would review any new development applications, including tenant permits, under the existing regulations and use chart that is in effect currently?
Yes, Madam Chair. We've had discussions recently with some of the community stakeholders who had questions around that. Yes, a property that is in a mixed-use zone for which an application was submitted prior to the effective date would be grandfathered and continue to be governed by the existing current law. Under the grandfathering language, any applications associated with these plans or permits filed under the effective date would also be grandfathered. If an owner submits a new application not associated with a grandfathered plan or application, they will be subject to the new law.
Okay. So for those grandfathered projects, the grandfathered uses may expand, contract, move around within a project, subject to the other requirements of Title IX in effect today, like the combination of use requirements, that different percentages we have, and they would not need to consult the new use chart that we're adopting, nor would any of those uses be treated as non-conforming uses. They'd all be permitted uses under this grandfathering.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
As I understand it, a project that's grandfathered would be treated the same as it is now, and the use chart existing in the code would apply. The
Okay.
new use chart would not apply, and none of the existing uses would be treated as non-conformant as long as the project is grandfathered and subject to the existing law.
Okay. And so for existing grandfathered developments, do you anticipate that the methodology for reviewing trip generation and tracking in a mixed-use project to deviate from the way it's reviewed today so that the traffic-related aspect of grandfathered developments would also not be governed by the use chart we have today, but under the existing for mixed-use projects that are still under development at this time?
Yes, as I understand it, for grandfathered development, traffic will be reviewed in the same way that it is today. That's what that same sentiment was relayed to some of those stakeholders as well.
Okay.
That is the intent of this legislation.
All right. And then I will build on what Ms. Pickard said. In my district, this bill, this is an important bill for us as a county as a whole to bring the county into a more modern take on mixed use. I thought the percentage to hear that only 1.3% of the entire county is zoned for mixed use is pretty incredible to think about, when we know that mixed use, when done well and thoughtfully, really can create important communities and neighborhoods that we have to have on there. For my district in particular, this is very important legislation for the Laurel Racetrack, which is coming, which is currently has a racetrack there that is going to be closing in the next few years. And in order to redevelop that property to a really welcoming economic center, to have that, we need to have this legislation so that it will be able to do that at that time. It will be a real opportunity to bring a transportation-centered mixed-use development there, and so I'm very supportive of this legislation. Mr. Smith.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity, Madam Chair. Of the 1.3%, do we know how many acres that is? Of that 1.3%?
It's in the Plan 2040 Volume 1. I forget the page number, but I think it's, if you give me a second, I can find it. But I think it's approximately 3,000.
3,000 acres?
Yeah, across the entirety of the county, I believe, yep.
Do you know how much of that is spread across the various districts of the 3,000?
I don't know district by district, no.
And is the 1.3% of the 25 potential, or is it of the 11 that are currently in the previous past legislation, planning in comprehensive zoning legislation?
I believe Mr. Hunt is saying it's 1.3% of the entirety of the county's land area.
Correct. Is that in the, because the comprehensive zoning hasn't finalized the review and some of the other comprehensive zoning portions, so is that the actual, or does that expand once the other 7 regions are completed?
If that came from Plan 2040, then that would have been prior to any recent rezonings from the region plans.
The reason I bring it up, because 3,000, one could argue that 3,000 is a significant parcel of land. Is that correct? 3,000 acres? Is that a good size?
You mean 3,000? If there was one site that was 3,000 acres?
No, the 3,000 acres is a lot of land. It's a good sizable land, chunk of land.
Compared to if it's what was the percentage? 1.8% or less of the entire county. I would respectfully suggest it's not.
Okay. So if of the 25 projects, potential mixed-use developments that are in the county, roughly half of those are in District 1. Is that a fair statement?
I know that when you look at if you're talking specifically about the mixed use, whether it's urban or suburban, that would be a fair statement, because historically, and I think Plan 2040 articulated this relatively well, they noted that historically they tended to do a lot of concentration of development towards areas that already had certain infrastructure capacities, whether it was closer to transit centers, or you had already had certain levels of water, sewer infrastructure. But the purpose of this, so yes, in short, a large percentage of the larger mixed use would be in areas west and north of Anne Arundel County, because historically those were the more developed portions of the county.
So but the only reason I bring it up is as we've deliberated over the last few months, as I mentioned before, I am for mixed use. I'm not opposed to any the expansion of the various categories that are being designated as 7524. The intentional use would certainly, in the Laurel Racetrack case, I think my only concern was there are parcels of the 25-ish, roughly 10, 11 are in District 1. And my concern was that they would potentially be designated as something that I didn't have an input into what they were being designated. That was my only concern that I've been saying since day one, haven't changed. And so it had given me pause and concern, because there's at least one, potentially two in the Jessup area specifically, that could be designated as something that does not include input from me. And that's, as a legislator and as we're going through this comp rezoning process, I mean, the whole point of us being involved in that is to sort of weigh in on those designated areas. I am not opposed to the administration looking at these creative ways. I just kind of wish we had done this one early in the process, because at least with Region 2 specifically, some of the language in there in the District 1 portions, I would have 100% had different verbiage on those plans. And so, this isn't to say that the mixed use bill is a bad bill. I just wish we had an opportunity as a council member to weigh in on those areas that are impacting our areas, and specifically with District 1, because it does have an oversized impact with this piece of legislation, that things could be designated a specific category, and I do not, or any council member have the ability to sort of change that or provide input. And that was the major influx of concern that I had leading up to this, up to this process. And so we had talked about the sector plans that were amended in the last piece, specifically for Region 2. Is there an intent, or is the administration supportive of capturing something that allows us to ensure that, because we already voted on Region 2, and this obviously can change that, what's the administration's commitment to the sector plan or changes specifically for those parcels over there?
Certainly, so I can take that. So just going back, it is 3,056 acres that are mixed use in Plan 2040, so I was close. Number two, in terms of Region 1, that is still in the process, and that has not been brought down to council yet. So when the Region 1 plan and comprehensive rezoning bill come to the county council, which I believe is where the most mixed use districts are, I believe there are 11, correct? Right, so you will have the opportunity to weigh in on those.
No, so Region 2, those are passed.
Right, so I'm getting to that. And so with Region 2, I believe there are two parcels that are in your district that are, I apologize, I printed off too much, but two mixed use parcels in Region 2 and Council District 1. And so I guess my commitment and the administration's commitment is that if it makes members more comfortable, we can bring forward legislation that specifies, similar to what the council adopted in Amendment 10 for this bill, which said that basically if a sector plan or study is required by the general development plan or the region plan, that sector study or plan has to be completed, and it has to recommend a mixed use rezoning to a mixed use district before a property can be administratively rezoned to a mixed use district. So that, I know that was the amendment for the Severna Park Marketplace, I believe, in District 5. And I know there are, I believe, 2 properties in your district and a couple in, Jessup Mark and Jessup, Maryland 175 corridor, and then 2 other properties in Region 4 as well.
And with Region 1, specifically with the Linthicum area, is there a commitment to work with adjusting, I guess, some of the language that puts that community at ease when it comes to, because there's a couple in that surrounding area as well that we will, essentially, when the bill passes, we're kind of excluded from the conversation going forward if a property owner decides to request the designation of a mixed use, it goes to planning officer?
So
or the administrative hearing officer?
If it's in Region 1, right, and so it would go through the council process. And so the administrative rezoning process that is specified in this bill only applies for the regions that have already been completed. So I want to make sure I understand your question. So if this bill is adopted, they would have that option in the Region 1 plan, and then you would have the opportunity to review the Region 1 plan with the legislation. Maybe Lynn can explain it better than I can.
You can amend the language in the Region 1 to say what you want.
Right, I know that part. I'm saying I'm talking about the process. If a property owner decides to take use of this legislation, they can request that through the administrative hearing officer to have it designated as a mixed use. It'll be a property owner-driven initiative. Is that correct?
Typically, it's the property owner that would file an administrative rezoning application. I did want to just add on to what Mr. Hunt said, because I think a couple times someone has alluded to the idea that there's no open public process at an administrative rezoning, but any administrative hearing officer rezoning is an open public hearing, just like a county council hearing. The public can attend, they can testify in person or in writing. So they have the same opportunities to weigh in and provide input that they would in a comprehensive rezoning.
Can council members testify during those processes?
Yes.
I just want to hear their answer. I don't know what the answer. I want to hear their answer.
Kelly County Supervisor.
Would you recommend a council member testify in those public forums?
No.
No.
Exactly. So the council member doesn't have the input sort of standard process that to weigh in at that stage. It's usually for the public, not necessarily for the elected members, because it creates a conundrum, I guess, what could happen if we testified at those hearings?
Kelly County Supervising County Attorney. I don't think it's expressly prohibited by the code. I know that, I think I pointed this section out to you before, but there's actually a specific section of the code that prohibits the county executive from interfering with anything that's pending before the administrative hearing officer. I don't believe there's something in place for the county council members, but I do not think it's typical for a council member to testify before the hearing officer. I think it probably would be a potential conflict.
I just wanted to put my concerns on the record. That's all officially, because I have received a lot of concern from members in my community, and some of those have valid concerns. And one of those was a commitment I had made to a community early this year that they shouldn't be concerned about language that was in the plan because a future designation hadn't been created yet. And so now fast forward now, and I'm in this situation where I don't get to be involved into that conversation of what that designation will be. And yet I told them not to worry about it. And a administrative hearing officer will be the one that ultimately decides on what that designation will be. So I just wanted to publicly say what my concern was, specifically with Region 2's adopted plan, since it's already behind us, and to say that I wish we had did this bill earlier before Region 2, so that this wouldn't be a concern, because I would have known what language to put in the planning side of the house. Nonetheless, we're here and we're trying to address it, but I wanted to publicly state that was my concern with this bill, the fact that we had already passed one of the regions, and it certainly impacts my community and the citizens who live in it. So,
if I may very quickly, no, Councilmember Smith, yes, you've been pretty consistent with stating those concerns. And I want to also, the administration has also been pretty consistent in noting that for example, talking about the Region 2 adopted plan, There were several sites, 4 specifically, that were designated as planned mixed use, but they were not rezoned, meaning one could apply for an administrative hearing officer rezoning. Those were 2 in Councilmember Hummer's district, Laurel Park and Laurel, Maryland 198 corridor, and the other 2 were Jessup Mark and Jessup, Maryland 175 corridor. As you know, Councilmember Smith, those are in your district, and I want to make sure that community members as well as the council members all understand and know that the Region 2 plans, the adopted ones, provide guidance language for all of those sites, page 45 to 47 in the plan. And for both the Jessup sites, the plan calls for small scale mixed use development of 2 to 3 story buildings. I just want to be very clear that that language would be included in any staff recommendation on any administrative hearing officer rezoning application. And it's very critical to note that this guidance language would not support a rezoning to a higher intensity mixed use zone.
Madam Chair, I got one last question. If I may. The comp rezoning process that we passed with Region 2 and Region 4, hypothetically, since we're voting on this bill after those 2 have passed, what prevents us from, let's say if this was a year from now on this legislation and all the regions had already been designated, hypothetically, does something break if this bill was voted on in a year when these other region plans were decided on, and we designated what those specific categories would be for those mixed-use areas, instead of it still being open as a question mark? Within a year, if we designated them now for the bills that have already passed, what breaks? Is there anything that is delayed or anything like that because if this was voted on in 6 months versus today?
Well,
maybe I'm having a moment. I'm still trying to understand the question. So if anyone else understands the question, please.
I'll make it clear. So let's say we are voting on this bill and we've already passed 2 comp rezoning plans, 2 and 4. So nothing broke those. We're modifying those. Let's say in 6 months, if we voted on this bill and these other 2, another third or bills have already passed, other comp rezoning plans and zones have passed, and we voted on that bill then, what breaks in those 3 if it didn't break these 2? If these 2 didn't break because we're voting on it after the fact, how does any of the other plans break if we voted on it 6 months from now?
I'll try to speak to that. I don't know if saying that it's broken is the right way to phrase it, but what passing the bill now does is give some certainty to the next 3 regions that are coming before the council within a matter of a couple months. So staff, council members will know specifically which mixed-use zone they want to recommend for any particular site because this legislation would be in place. So without the legislation in place, you're still going to be operating with some level of uncertainty, which you yourself have said was a disadvantage with the first 3 areas because this legislation wasn't passed yet.
But I guess my other added to that was we designated specifically what it is and not leave it open to it. So as these other communities are being included within the comp rezoning and comp zoning plan and the zoning layer, we have those discussions about should it be mixed T or mixed U or mixed S, whatever the future designation will be. We do that now in the comp rezoning plans instead of. Does that make sense? Maybe I'm sort of talking in circles here. But.
Kelly Kenny, Supervising County Attorney. I can at least help, I think, with the last part. You wouldn't be able to comprehensively rezone properties to a zone that doesn't exist. So part of the reason that this bill is going forward now is to rename those zones, create the new zone, and have that flexibility that Ms. Pickard was talking about
in place for the upcoming mixed-use properties. So, you're creating those zones now so you can rezone the properties that come up in the next region plans to the new zones because they will exist.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I don't know exactly who was next, so I'll just go down the row. Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Prior to this bill, the only two ways that you could receive a change in your zoning is comprehensive zoning or going for the administrative hearing officer and proving either an error was made or the area has changed since the last comp rezoning. This bill adds a third opportunity, but only for mixed use zoning, and only if you have underlying land use that is mixed use, but not corresponding zoning that is land use. With the added caveat through an amendment that we did, that if any of those scenarios exist with a stated study requirement, that the study has to be completed and recommended for mixed use in order for it to be approved. So I'm just giving background for those in the room. If I am a private property owner in that scenario, and we'll use Severna Park Marketplace, easy, because we know that there's study language in the current code, and I apply for a hearing to have my zoning changed, who is the trigger to ensure that a study is done? Is it planning and zoning? Is it the variance or the hearing officer? Who is making sure that the applicant is aware and that it is completed?
Kelly Kenny, Supervising County Attorney. One thing I want to clarify before I answer that question too is that this bill doesn't really create a third method of rezoning. I would see there's still only two methods of rezoning. There's the comprehensive rezoning that the council does, and then there's the administrative rezoning, also known as a piecemeal rezoning. So those are still the only two ways that a property owner can get their property rezoned. What this bill does is it establishes that one of the four factors that needs to be met for a piecemeal rezoning is automatically met by the fact that the property was placed in a mixed-use plan land use in one of the region plans that just went forward during these last times. So it doesn't create a third avenue. The intent was really to make it, easier for those applicants who didn't have the benefit of these new mixed-use zoning districts in place at the time that those comp zonings went forward to come back and say, well, I don't want to, now there's these new zones, I want to apply for this zone. So that was actually an attempt to allow those properties who may have missed out on those new mixed zones existing to go forward to the hearing officer for that. So hopefully that'll help clarify that there's not a third option. And then with regard to the sector plan requirement, that would be something that both the planning and zoning office and the administrative hearing officer would have to be aware of. So if an application comes in, the Office of Planning and Zoning does a pre-file meeting with them. It probably wouldn't even get in the door if they hadn't had the sector plan study, because they couldn't even go forward to the hearing officer. If for some reason it did, it would be in their recommendation that they cannot recommend the rezoning because it doesn't have the sector plan study. And if it went to the hearing officer, he could not grant that rezoning because it doesn't meet that requirement in the code that it needs that sector plan study to have been completed and recommended mixed-use zoning.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And the reason I asked exactly how that would work is there was some concern that a project would get the rezoning without the administrative hearing officer realizing that some study should have taken place. So I appreciate that information for the record.
Sure.
Ms. Rodbian.
Thank you. So I just want to, a couple other questions to make sure, really more for the benefit of folks who have been following this bill so they understand what it does and doesn't do, because we did receive a good number of emails that made claims that this bill does something that, as far as I can tell, it does not do. So I just want to be clear, someone can't even apply for an administrative hearing if, assuming their part, their region has already been completed for the comprehensive rezoning part of the process, if it wasn't designated, if their property wasn't designated as mixed use land use in Plan 2040, there is no avenue for them to take their parcel and apply for an administrative rezoning. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, the bill says that, so it has to be designated that, or they can't be rezoned to a mixed-use zone.
So the absolute broadest we could get in terms of creating, possibly additional mixed-use land parcels is laid out in Plan 2040. We absolutely cannot. This leaves no path to go beyond what is already laid out in Plan 2040. Is that?
That's correct.
Right, or a region plan.
Or region plan,
right.
Okay, yes. And then I want to just, I'm curious to ask, because I honestly don't even remember what the Ridgely Avenue corridor is in terms of land use, but obviously, it had there was definitely, a lot of concern about whether that could be some sort of mixed use, sort of village type property. But would the administrative hearing officer be asked to consider conversations that took place during the rezoning process? Or would that be, something that, parties could bring as like, hey, we actually discussed this extensively and the county council voted against it. And we think that, we should stick with what the county council did.
Cali County Supervising County Attorney. Yes, the legislative record in the background can be introduced before the hearing officer and before the Board of Appeals. I've seen that happen before in piecemeal rezoning cases.
And I would think that that would be a pretty strong argument for the administrative hearing officer or the Board of Appeals. Is that a fair statement?
A lot of times it's looked at to establish whether there was a change or mistake. A lot of times mistake, they'll look at the record to see whether there was a mistake, but and I can't say what would or would not sway the hearing officer, but I'm sure it could be persuasive.
Okay. And then one of the things that came up a lot is that the idea that the county executive had a role in this process. And I just want to clarify, there's no role for the county executive in this process. It's not, there's no place for the county executive to create new mixed-use zones, to approve projects. Like, that is 100% not the role of the county executive.
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted that on the record because we heard that a lot.
Right, yeah, in fact, as I mentioned to Mr. Smith, there is a provision in the code, I don't have my fingers on that exact section, which specifically says that.
And then one last question, and this one maybe is a little bit more for me, but also for the benefit of, folks who have been following along. What would the standards be for the administrative hearing officer if they were looking at, potentially creating a new mixed-use zoning from a parcel that had designated land use as mixed use, but was not zoned that way in the comprehensive rezoning? Are there any particular standards that they would, use to, to make that decision of whether to grant, to grant the mixed use zoning or to not grant it? I know there's, requirements you have to get even to just sort of get in the door, like the study, for example.
Cali County Supervising County Attorney, I can start the answer and then maybe Ms. Miller can give some more details, but there's codified standards that the hearing officer has to look at. Those are in 1816-303. We talked about that a little bit. One of them is normally is the change or mistake that doesn't have to be shown in this situation, but the most important one here that would probably be relevant is that the new zoning classification has to conform to the GDP in relation to land use, number of dwelling units, or type and intensity of non-residential buildings. So the hearing officer is required to look at the GDP and the region plan, because that amends the GDP to ensure that compatibility. And then there's another specific factor for the critical area, and then also one that requires compatibility between uses of the property as reclassified in the surrounding land uses, and they look at health, safety, and welfare. So there are codified standards that the hearing officer would look at.
So is it fair to say that this is a pretty onerous process for someone who wanted to go through this?
Yes, piecemeal.
Like, there's a lot of hoops they have to jump through if they want it to succeed in getting a rezoning.
Correct. Piecemeal rezonings are typically difficult to obtain.
Okay, thank you. That's all I got.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to go back to the offer that I heard you or mentioned from the table, but for the regions that have already been passed, for communities who may want the assurance of a sector plan, that you're willing to bring that forward. I know we talked at length during comprehensive rezoning, specifically when it was the amendment from Ms. Fiedler regarding that property in Saverna Park about exactly what a sector plan was, but it's been a while, and so I just thought it might be helpful to have a refresher on the type of public input and what's done when that sort of study is, if and when one were to happen for a piece of property.
Lynn Miller, sure, I can speak to that. I would say a sector plan it's almost like a mini region plan, because it's looking at a lot of the same parameters that are looked at when we do a region plan, but it's just typically on a smaller geographic area, and usually has maybe a more specific objective that you're trying to accomplish. But we would start with looking at existing conditions and what improvements are on the properties now, what are the goals and objectives you want to achieve through either rezoning or through other implementation strategies. And it may include some design components, design standards. We probably have a work group or some kind of public outreach group similar to what we use when we do region plans. So it's almost like a smaller scale region planning process.
Madam Chair, may I follow? So there would be opportunity for public input in that process?
Sure.
And opportunity for the council person from that district to also have their voice used to elevate and amplify what they're hearing from their community?
Sure.
Thank you.
Right. Are there any other comments or questions from the council members? All right, at this time, we will now open the public hearing on Bill number 7524 as amended. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
Yes, Madam Chair. We received 58 pieces, which have been shared with the council, added to the record, and posted to the website.
Okay. We will now call on individuals who signed up ahead of the meeting. When I call your name, please come to the table and have a seat. When it is your turn, state your name and address for the record. Remarks will be limited to 2 minutes. Please listen for the buzzer and respect the 2-minute time limit as others are signed up to speak. If you have more than 2 minutes to share, I'm going to ask you to submit your additional thoughts as early as tomorrow using our online testimony tool. We have one person who has signed up ahead of time, Maisie T. Howard. All right. If there is anyone else who now wishes to speak on Bill number 7524, please come forward. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Valerie, middle name Byrne, last name Rudisell. I am in District 6, 2904 Southwater Point Drive, Annapolis, 21401. I live in my parents' home, which is a waterfront lot. As you're driving down Riva Road, right before the bridge, to the right-hand side. It is prime waterfront that they purchased the lot in 1976, as did their neighbor about it in around 78. He's one of the few original owners. He's 92 now. And then my parents, who've owned it since 1976, this lot, which they bought the lot and built the house. Well, I knew there was something going on with the plat, and I could not, it's taken me quite a while to figure out what has occurred with the, it was administratively rewritten. My parents have no real knowledge as to what is going on with their land, which I went over to the county earlier, last week, met with Patrick at Planning and Zoning, and he comes down with the plat. And, he didn't know that part of it had just been redone as open zoning, open space. So they have their entire waterfront is now open space. And they have no knowledge of this. We don't know who owns this open space waterfront strip, who's, allowed to come onto it whenever they want, who now owns their pier, who now owns their water. And their tax ID number is 2759020888903. I was able to trail it to several areas, but the most clear is one of the numbers I'll give you, which is CZ-4 or R7-GRA-1509. That was one of the ones in September that was rezoned open space, and it states clearly on the little chart and spreadsheet applies to the entire parcel. Now, they just bought the lot, and they had a voluntary homeowners association. Whatever's going on now has rezoned their land to open space.
It's kind of,
sorry.
wrap up, I'm
I
sorry.
didn't hear that. Okay.
Yes, no problem.
I have a call
Thank you.
into your office to try to have a meeting with you.
So,
Thank you.
Mr. Mueller.
Gary Mueller from Jessup. Gary Mueller from Jessup. Just a refresher, I did serve on Plan 2040. I've attended every Region 2 planning meetings, and I'm sorry for you guys because OPZ has put you guys in a position, kind of what Pete Smith alluded to, is you're trying to bail out a bad problem. And things happen, for example, Plan 2040, we were not allowed to think out of the box. We were not allowed to have discussions of what if, could we do it this way? A lot of the things that have come up could be addressed in an organized manner if those discussions were allowed. The idea of, we're going to have walkable communities, we're going to do all these no cars, that's utopia talk, and it's not based in reality of what you're going to do in Anne Arundel County that's, 90-some% built out? You don't want to build on 2/3 of the county, and I agree with that, but you can't build this utopia. There's been we weren't allowed to talk about maglev. We weren't allowed to talk about light rail. If you want to see examples of projects that work for low income and for this mixed use, you can see them in Montgomery County. You can see them along Rockville Pike, where they built 15, 20-story buildings, and right next door are multiple subway stations. That is responsible development. What is being proposed and presented to you by OPZ is not responsible. It's backwards. What Pete mentioned is this kind of a definition of mixed use should have been given as guidance to the Region 2 plan. It should have been guidance given to the Plan 2040. I could spend an hour talking about all the misinformation that's presented tonight, and it's really disturbing to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Ms. Johnson.
I'm Julie Johnson, P.O. Box 6634, Annapolis, Maryland. I came forward to speak partly because the scouts are here and they're trying to learn about, how does all of this stuff work? And I thought, we're talking about mixed use. So they understand that they may live in a neighborhood where it's mostly houses for families to live in. But have they heard about the 11-year-old kid who was really interested in the early electronic games? And he worked with his mom to get her to take him to every yard sale they could find. And this young entrepreneur, and that word means a business adventurer, he started buying these up, and then what he did is he rented them to his classmates. And he started making a significant amount of money because, people get tired of an old game, and and he gets the consoles, and he's the consultant if somebody doesn't know how to work with them. And then there was another kid in the class or down the hall, maybe a different grade, and he had some puppies. And he had he'd had dogs all through his life, and he knew how to take good care of those dogs. So it wasn't just that, he was wanting to make money and be greedy. There were people in the neighborhood who needed help because they didn't have the time, the space, the equipment, because it's really nice if somehow you've got a garage and you've got a laundry tub that can be adapted to a dog bath tub. And so here you have another young kid who is learning how to create his own business. And the other kids in class who are not actually making the money are learning and having experiences about, I don't have to grow up and become an X, Y, or Z that they know somebody else's dad is one of them. I could do that. And this whole discussion of mixed use is ignoring the fact that we can include stuff like that without calling it mixed use. We used to call it home occupations. Thank you for that extra couple seconds.
So, So, is there anyone else who wishes to speak on Bill number 7524? Okay, the public hearing on Bill number 7524 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 7524 as amended.
Bill number 7524, an ordinance concerning boards, commissions, and similar bodies, subdivision and development, zoning, development, mixed-use districts.
All right. We do have two technical amendments to this bill. Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 17.
Madam Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just for the sake of, I see she's about to walk out the door, but I wanted to ask a question of our Office of Law that might give you some relief. If you wouldn't mind taking a moment to describe what an open space designation for zoning means.
Kelly Kenny, Supervising County Attorney. One of the things I do believe I heard her testify, I missed her name, but she was questioning whether it allows the public to come onto the property, and that is not what open space zoning does. It just has very limited use allowances. There's usually no structures allowed. It's usually open space, that there's trees, there's grass, but there's not a lot of structures there. So it does not open your property up for the public to walk on it.
So in no way allows public access?
Correct.
So it's, yeah. All right. Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 17.
Amendment number 17, this technical amendment removes the inadvertent inclusion of the use of a mixed-use village district.
Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So that's exactly what it does. It just removes an inadvertent inclusion.
Exactly. And I will take responsibility for the inadvertent inclusion. I didn't pick it up when I was briefing it. So.
Motion to adopt.
Pardon? Motion to adopt. Oh. I didn't hear you, sorry. So do we have a second? Okay. All those in favor? Oh, no, we have to call the roll, don't we? I'm sorry. Call the roll, Ms. Schultz.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
And Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 17 has been adopted.
All right. Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 18.
Amendment number 18, this technical amendment removes redundant language from the bill.
Mr. Hunt.
That is exactly what it does. It removes redundant language. It's included in the line above. So.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Second. Okay. Is there any discussion? All right, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 18.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
And Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 18 has been adopted.
All right. Since the amendments were technical, we can vote on the bill tonight. So, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on bill number 7524 as amended.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Nay.
And Ms. Hummer. 6 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. Bill number 7524 as amended has passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of bill number 9124 as amended.
Bill number 9124, an ordinance concerning zoning requirements for conditional uses, home occupations.
Ms. Fiedler, this is your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have discussed this legislation at our work session in previous council meetings. Essentially what this bill does is changes the minimum lot size that is required for an at-home pet care business. And I ask for my colleagues' support at the appropriate time.
Does the administration want to weigh in on this one?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're comfortable with this bill. Urge the council to adopt it.
All right. So, hold on a second. Missing a page. Where'd it go? I'm missing a page to my script. Hold on. So, well, we will now move to public hearing on Bill number 9124. Madam Secretary, did we have anyone sign up to testify?
Well, first, we had no one submit any written testimony through the online testimony tool, but no, we also did not have anybody
We have
sign
neither
up.
one. There we go. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on Bill 9124? All right. So the public hearing on Bill number 9124 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 9124 as amended.
Bill number 9124, an ordinance concerning zoning requirements for conditional uses, home occupations.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. So no further discussion. Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill number 9124 as amended.
Ms. Pickard?
Aye.
Mr. Volkey?
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler?
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian?
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
And Ms. Hummer? 7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 9124 has passed.
Okay. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 9324.
Bill number 9324, an ordinance concerning planning and development master plan for water supply and sewerage systems.
Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table, I have Kelly Kenny from the Office of Law. And coming up to the table, I have Desiree Williams from the Office of Planning and Zoning, and James Howard from the Department of Public Works. So Bill 9324, the administration seeks to amend the master plan for water and sewer systems to alter certain text and maps. These amendments for the master plan will allow the Department of Public Works to provide required upgrades to the Piney Orchard wastewater treatment plants at a lower cost solution. Currently, the master plan requires enhanced nutrient removal, or ENR, treatment standards through an upgrade to the Piney Orchard water reclamation facility, which would cost an estimated $45 million. The proposed master plan amendments in this bill will allow DPW to instead replace the Piney Orchard wastewater treatment plant with a pumping station and force main to send waste to the Patuxent water reclamation facility. This lower cost solution is estimated to total $20 million and includes $9 million in tentative Bay Restitution Fund grants. These changes will not impact any private groups, organizations, or individuals, but it will eventually save the county some money. We're happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the council? All right, we will now open the public hearing on Bill number 9324. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
No, Madam Chair, we did not.
Okay, no one signed up ahead of time. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on Bill 9324? Okay. So, all right, the public hearing on Bill number 9324 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 9324 as amended.
Bill number 9324, an ordinance concerning planning and development master plan for water supply and sewerage systems.
It's actually, I don't think it is amended as yet. It says
There's
that
one
in there.
technical
We're about to have a technical amendment, but it is not amended as yet. Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 1.
My apologies for your script error. Amendment number 1, this technical amendment removes the redundant project name and number from the description of the Piney Orchard SPS and FM contract on page 4-89 of plan in table 4-37 wastewater capital improvement projects, Anne Arundel County.
Would the administration like to speak on this amendment?
Thank you. It just removes a redundant project name. We would urge the council to adopt it.
Do I have a motion to adopt? Okay. Is there any discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 1.
Ms. Pickard?
Aye.
Mr. Volkey?
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler?
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian?
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
And Ms. Hummer?
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 1 has been adopted.
Since this amendment was technical, we can vote on the bill tonight. Is there any further discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill number 9324 as amended.
Ms. Pickard?
Aye.
Mr. Volkey?
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler?
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian?
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
And Ms. Hummer?
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 9324 as amended has passed.
All right, Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 9424.
Bill number 9424, an ordinance concerning boards, commissions, and similar bodies, Finance, Taxation, and Budget, Agriculture Commission.
So, Mr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration and Kelly Kenny from the Office of Law. So this bill simply seeks to codify the Anne Arundel County Agricultural Commission. The commission was originally established in 2017 as the Agriculture, Farming, and Agritourism Commission and was defined to its current name and structure by Executive Order 54 in 2021. In early 2024, the Agriculture Commission requested the codification of the commission to ensure that it continues, and the commission voted to unanimously support this legislation at its August 2024 meeting. I will note, I know the bill is 8 pages long. It's because agriculture comes first alphabetically, so all the other boards and commissions had to be renumbered in the code. So that is a very tedious job someone had to undertake. We're happy to answer any questions.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Ms. Ledbetter.
I just wanted to, I support the administration's position on the bill and the importance of this passage and urge my colleagues to vote favorably.
Right. We will now open the public hearing on Bill number 9424. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
Yes, Madam Chair, we received 6 pieces which have been shared with the council, added to the record, and posted to the website.
Okay. No one signed up ahead of time. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on Bill number 9424? Okay. The public hearing on Bill number 9424 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 9424.
Bill number 9424, an ordinance concerning boards, commissions, and similar bodies, Finance, Taxation, and Budget, Agriculture Commission.
Any further discussion? Okay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill number 94.
Ms. Pickard?
Aye.
Mr. Volkey?
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler?
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian?
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
And Ms. Hummer?
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 9424 has passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 9524. Oh, I'm sorry, 9624.
Yes, you can go ahead and get rid of that one.
Move that page over. 9624.
Bill number 9624, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, site development, pre-built short-term buildings.
All right, Mr. Volkey, this is your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is my bill. There will be an amendment at the appropriate time to address the concerns that were raised at the work session, but just to briefly rehash, this bill will allow temporary structures, if you will, on properties that are schools or churches to allow them to expand their space for meeting space, provided that they are not increasing their impervious footprint, they don't impact their on-site parking, and they are served by electricity but not plumbing or sewer. It's a pretty straightforward bill. Basically allows for pre-built structures to go there on parking lots or a pad site for really the limited purpose that you can do with 1,200 square feet. So with that, I would ask for my colleagues' support for the amendment when that comes up, and thank you.
Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we did have some follow-up conversations following the work session with the sponsor, and with the amendment, we're comfortable with this bill.
Okay. Is there any discussion from the council? Ms. Fiedler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I referenced that this reminds me very much of my youth and Sunday school and attending Sunday school classes in a trailer. So not knowing that this was no longer allowed, I totally support the bill. And Madam Secretary, if you can please add me as a co-sponsor.
Yes, I will, Ms. Fiedler. Thank you.
All right. So we will now open the public hearing on Bill number 9624. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
Yes, Madam Chair, we received 12 pieces which have been shared with the council, added to the record, and posted to the website.
We will now call on individuals who signed up ahead of the meeting. When I call your name, please come up to the table and have a seat. When it's your turn, state your name and address for the record. Remarks will be limited to 2 minutes. Please listen for the buzzer and respect the 2-minute time limit as others are signed up to speak. If you have more than 2 minutes to share, I'm going to ask you to submit your additional thoughts as early as tomorrow using our online testimony tool. And we have one person signed up, Pastor Arcand.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to speak tonight. I appreciate all of you, you know that. I'll be brief, and I won't be very articulate, but I'll be very transparent. We endeavored to get a trailer or a modular building, is the classy way of saying it, that the public school system has been using for years to expand. Literally, we're getting it from Montgomery County. When we went to Office of Planning and Zoning, we discovered that we would have to go through a complete site development plan. And, you know, we tried to push back on that, got some preliminary engineer drawings to push, had a meeting with the planning. And as we got into that, there was really no way. They said, we just don't, you know, do these modular type buildings anywhere, you know, in the county anymore, you know. And I said, well, what about the county schools? Well, they don't have to go through the same process. So that's what we're doing. It's basically a double wide modular building. It'd be very classy. We do everything first class and sharp at Lighthouse Baptist Church. So that's what we're doing. And right on top of our existing parking lot. We're not moving anything. It's basically a plug and play building. You know, that's what we're endeavoring to do. If the bill doesn't do that, then, I mean, I'll support it, but I'm not for it. We just, you know, but that's what we're looking to do, is be able to, it's on the chassis, you pull it in, we'll have to run electric. We understand that. We know they'll have to do, you know, we're not trying to get it without a permit or anything. We'll do what we have to do. But basically you plug the thing in and, man, you're set up. You can have office or have Sunday school classes like Miss Fiedler used to do. And that's basically our intention. So I hope y'all will support the bill. Appreciate it. Ms. Rodvian, we really appreciate you caused a stir the church. I've been getting emails from you because you and your staff responded to all of the people that were, you know, testifying. Every one of them was in all day long. So thank you very much.
I will give a shout out to my legislative aide, Courtney Buniscus. I don't know if she can hear me right now, but
she did good. She did good. My people were very excited about Ms. Rodvian. So thank y'all very much. And they like you too, Nathan. Councilman. Thank you.
So, is there anyone else here who now wishes to speak on Bill number 9624? So, the public hearing on Bill number 9624 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 9624.
Bill number 9624, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, site development, pre-built short-term buildings.
There is one amendment. Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 1.
Amendment number 1. This amendment clarifies the type of structure permitted.
Mr. Volkey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So again, this comes out of the work session, the discussion from the Office of Planning and Zoning, and some concerns about the ambiguity in the language as the bill was originally drafted. With that, we have landed on a much simpler definition, and I believe that this will get the administration, as Mr. Hunt put it, comfortable with the bill. With that, ask my colleagues' support. Move the amendment.
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion? Administration?
We always appreciate clear, concise definitions, and I know the sponsor does as well, so we support and urge the council to adopt.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 1.
Ms. Pickard.
Oldie bitty goodie.
Yes, aye. Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
And Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 1 has been adopted.
Bill number 9624 as amended will be heard on January 6, 2025. So, Madam Secretary, please read the title of Resolution number 5124.
Resolution number 5124, resolution approving the private disposition of certain improved county-owned property known as a portion of Magathy Bridge Road adjacent to the Early Heights Volunteer Fire Company in Severna Park, Maryland.
Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table, I have Marnie Wilson from the Real Estate Office and Kelly Kenny from the Office of Law. So this property is located in Severna Park and is comprised of a portion of Magathy Bridge Road that's adjacent to the Early Heights Volunteer Fire Department. It contains just over 36,000 square feet, or a little over 0.8 acres. Originally, the property was conveyed to the county in 1981. This property, we received a request from the Early Heights Volunteer Fire Department. They wanted to obtain the adjacent portion of the Magathy Bridge Road right-of-way for additional parking. There's a map that you have all been provided of the surrounding area as part of this package. The council did declare this property as surplus by the passage of Resolution 4823 last December. If you approve this resolution, the Real Estate Division will proceed with the private disposition of this property to the Early Heights Volunteer Fire Company for $0.
Is there any discussion? No. We will now open the public hearing on resolution number 5124. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
No, Madam Chair, we did not.
No one signed up ahead of time. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on resolution number 5124? Okay. The public hearing on resolution number 5124 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of resolution number 5124.
Resolution number 5124, resolution approving the private disposition of certain improved county-owned property known as a portion of Magathy Bridge Road adjacent to the Early Heights Volunteer Fire Company in Severna Park, Maryland.
Any further discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll on resolution number.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
And Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Resolution number 5124 has been adopted.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of resolution number 5224.
Resolution number 5224, resolution encouraging Anne Arundel County employees, residents, and visitors to save lives by driving safely.
Ms. Rodvian, this is your resolution.
And of course, I've had this up on my screen and now it's blank. I've had, thank you, Ms. Schultz. All right, I just want to read this. I'm sure if you've been following our local news lately, you've seen that we've had a good number of fatal and very bad accidents, causing loss of life to families before the holidays and really even this whole year. So this is really just a first step in asking the public and all county employees to just be mindful of safe driving. Let me read the resolution first. Resolution encouraging Anne Arundel County employees, residents, and visitors to save lives by driving safely. Whereas statewide, as the date of this resolution, there have been 511 traffic fatalities on Maryland roadways, with Anne Arundel County having the 4th highest number of fatalities out of all Maryland jurisdictions in 2024. And whereas between 2018 and 2022, Anne Arundel County lost 253 people to motor vehicle-related deaths, and according to the Maryland Highway Safety Office, as of this date in 2024, has had 49 traffic fatalities. And whereas of the 253 people lost between 2018 and 2022, the age group most affected were between the ages of 15 and 34, representing 37 of the fatalities. And whereas in Anne Arundel County between 2020 and 2023, there were approximately 4,000 emergency department and hospitalization visits by county residents related to motor vehicle traffic injuries. Whereas of the 49 traffic fatalities in Anne Arundel County thus far in 2024, 8 fatalities have been pedestrians, 22 have been impaired driver related, and 11 have been unrestrained occupants. Whereas all drivers, motorcyclists, bicyclists, and pedestrians play a part in keeping our roads safe by keeping the safety of others in mind, wearing a seatbelt, driving the speed limit, observing traffic signs and signals, giving full attention to other travelers without interruption from phones or other distractions, and operating a vehicle impaired. And whereas, let us all commit to doing right by our neighbors, friends, and family by driving safely, buckling up, putting away the phone, driving the speed limit, and driving sober. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the County Council of Anne Arundel County, Maryland, that it encourages all Anne Arundel County employees, residents, and visitors to practice safe driving this holiday season and into 2025, and be it further resolved that upon approval of this resolution, a copy be shared with all Anne Arundel County employees. And I know my colleagues might, be wondering why I'm taking a time to make a resolution out of this topic. First off, like I said before, this is not. I hope this is not the first and only step in taking steps to make our roads safer. But it is a step, and if we ask, sometimes people say yes. So I encourage everyone, next time you put your hands on the steering wheel and turn on the ignition in your car or truck, to just be mindful and take a moment to breathe and say, I want everyone around me to get home safely. So I encourage my colleagues' support.
Is there any other further discussion on this resolution? Administration, do you have any comments? No. Okay. Mr. Volke.
What's the impetus for this?
Honestly, it was a string of traffic-related deaths, a good number of which were in District 6, but in other parts of the county as well. I think there was a very unfortunate traffic fatality that was a young child, and because there had been so many, it just felt like it was time to take some sort of action. And like I said, I hope to have further legislation creating a larger public safety campaign, because it really is possible to save lives if we just all slow down, stop tailgating, look out for pedestrians. So just the high number of fatalities that we've seen.
Didn't we previously do something about Vision Zero and sort of safety with driving? Didn't we pass that previously?
We did, and unfortunately, as you can see, we have not reached Vision Zero. So this, could be called a piggyback on that effort. There are other steps that I think we need to take if we're actually going to be serious about reaching Vision Zero.
What do you anticipate is sort of the outcome if this passes?
I really have no idea. I mean, we have a voice, we have a platform where we can take the time to ask for, people to just be more mindful and safe. Of course, in a county with 600,000 residents, our voices only go so far, but better to reach some voices than no voices, or excuse me, to reach some ears than no ears. And so, especially with the holiday season coming up, and we know that that's a time when there are more traffic accidents, there's higher incidents of drunk driving, anything we can do. So this is maybe you could call it a desperate Hail Mary, but I would still ask for your support.
Okay. And my last point was this, not taking anything away from the 511 traffic fatalities, but Anne Arundel is the 4th largest jurisdiction in the state. So if we have the 4th most fatalities, that's sort of proportional to our size, at least in terms of population in the state. Obviously, we want to be 24th in the state in terms of fatalities. That's where we want to be. But if we're looking at the number of people we have versus the number of accidents and that proportionality, it seems to line up. So I guess that was one of the things that that caught my eye immediately was, if you said we were 1st in traffic fatalities, but we're 4th in population, I would have said, well, there's some disproportionality there. I can see that. Obviously, I think all of us support the whole idea of everything in here. We don't want people to get in accidents. We want everybody to be safe drivers, et cetera. I'm just not quite sure what the need for this body to make this statement at this point is. So I'm just going to say that so that you know where I'm coming from based on my vote.
And I think it's a very fair, criticism of that particular line. I mean, we are the 4th largest jurisdiction, which means, we have that many more residents that we're accountable to. So again, there's certainly no harm in doing it. There's certainly no harm in doing it. And maybe someone will hear it and change their behavior.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll on resolution number 5224.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Nay.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodbian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
6 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. Resolution number 5224 has been adopted.
Is there any other business any council member would like to bring before the county council at this time?
Motion to adopt?
Adjourn.
Motion to
I'm sorry,
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. The county council is adjourned until Monday, January 6, 2025, for our next legislative session in our chambers. And may everyone have a wonderful holiday season. Nathan.